Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, Unpacking the NAICOM National Insurance Commission's Prudential Guidance, which were released in October 2022. My name is Ayo Alamutu. I'm the COO at Conrad Clark Nigeria Limited, your host for today. As we are aware, the NAICOM Prudential Guidelines were released, guidance was set out the minimum prudential standards for underwriting, reinsurance, investment, outsourcing, and so on, services and so on, which are required from insurance institutions to facilitate reliable, sound, and sustainable growth of the insurance industry. Again, as we are aware, they're in three parts. Part A, which is for the insurers and reinsurers. Part B, which applies to insurance intermediaries. And Part C for every general applicant, anybody working in that space. Now, the purpose of this webinar is to focus on Part A, Clause 6, which highlights the risk management framework for insurers and reinsurers in Nigeria. We want to explore Part A, we want to look at the Clause 6, and hopefully at the end of it, we want to try and show the gap between the existing risk management framework and the requirements in the updated guidelines. We also hope that at the end of it, there will be a desire to train board capacity to seek risk appetite and interrogate the value of the ERM, enterprise risk and performance management process. And at some stage, we hope to have a step-to-step guide for developing your risk management framework that will cover the systems, structures, policies, processes, and people within the company. It is our desire that at the end of it, we would indeed have unpackaged this. Do know that this is the first in a series of handling the guidelines. With us today for the fireside chat will be Joachim Adenusi, the MD of Conrad Clark Nigeria Limited. And joining him for the chat is Gus Wiggle, the president of RIMSON and the founder of Care First Consult. We had expected to have, as a third member of the panel, a representative from NAICOM to join us. We hope that they'll be able to join us eventually. But without wasting much of your time, I'd like to invite Joachim and Gus to take over, with Joachim, being the moderator and discussant. Thank you very much. Over to you, Joachim.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Good morning. Can you all see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
If you can see me, just type Ogaris just to make sure that you can see my shirt. Morning, Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you're all well. It's good to see you guys again. There are lots of familiar faces in the online. Let me start also by welcoming Gus first. Hello, can you all hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Camera has been disabled, so they can't see me.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah.
And also, I can't share. I don't know who did that.
Can you hear us? We can hear you and see you.
Yeah, so I can't share and I can't.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yes. Okay. All right. So let me welcome my very good friend, former MD of Linked Assurance, CEO, somebody who is very, very familiar with the operation of insurance practice for years and years, but also as a practitioner, also from the receiving end from the regulator, as Ayo mentioned. NAICOM is the beginning of a journey, and this is the first section of what we'll be unpacking. And they're going to be a more interesting section. This is going to be interesting, but we want to lay the context and begin to look at why is this important. We'll be talking about, I'm aware that this regulation has a lot of conversation still going on in the industry, but we thought it's better to begin to engage with the industry and and get some feedback. And then we are not regulated, but we work with regulation, with the regulator and the regulated. And so we're kind of like a good midwife. We listen to the regulator, we listen to the market, and we can work with you all to see what it means in terms of how we can comply. Now, as you know, risk management, Cora Clark is your risk partner. But while we're looking at regulation, because it's critical to the heart of the business we're doing in a regulated environment, and there are consequences of not complying. And I'll come straight. This is what the overview of the general guidelines look like.
You are muted. You have muted yourself. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, forgive me. I was just talking to myself. I said, that first, sorry, let me just go by it again. Cora Clark, as most of you know us, we are your friend, here to support you, hold your hands from the place of ensuring that you deliver your goals. If you are not following us on LinkedIn, there are lots of videos, a lot of materials for learning and development you can look at on our social media. Please, at least follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube. It's quite very, very informative information there. Also, we are strategic partners to a lot of you. And also we partner between the regulator and the regulated. We are not regulated, but we work to look at the marriage between the two and have that transition so that the rate of divorce or the rates of harmonious or conflict in that relationship will be. And the guideline has three parts, really. The part A has about 9 sections, and protection of policyholders' funds, annual returns, investments, reinsurance, aviation, risk management framework, annuity business, actuarial function outsourcing. These are equal to normal global standard that you get in any developed countries. And I'll just give a quick overview of these. So why are we, and then part B deals with intermediaries. It's interesting that the regulation or the regulator, there's so much focus going to go on intermediaries, looking at other intermediaries also because the insurance industry is growing and we're getting so many diversities of different form of intermediaries coming to the market. So the importance of actually keeping an eye to protect the policyholder is now more critical. But why do we want to start from this place of risk management framework? So section 6 is important because it's something that can help. And some of you might not even, you don't have to be in risk function or be a risk manager to understand this at the moment. The ability of the kind of thing we do. I'm laying a context and I'm going to have a quick chat with, Gus later. The ability of organization to exist. First, the regulator wants to protect. There's a threat to policyholders. Two, the industry has a reputation which Gus equally has been working on from a place of claims and the perception of the way people see us. And I think it's getting better. But more than ever, like other industry, we need to step up because really, I can say this beginning of this year.
Yes.
The place that the next set of wealth will come is going to be within this protection insurance industry, pensions insurance. I'm not saying the banking will not continue to make money, but I see in the future the amount of potential of assets and wealth that's going to come into this industry. So if we're not working according to a particular laid down standard, please, would you mind muting yourself, please? Because I can hear some noise so that we can all hear each other. Equally, there's a major threat to your operating license, either as a broker, insurance, or reinsurance, doesn't matter. My suspicion is that the regulator can sense that this new frontier of outburst of wealth and even the next generation of young people, the Nigerian population, the demographic, and vis-a-vis the number of people actually covered, it's obvious that we're about to unleash something. And you can see a lot of underwriters being creative, starting some amazing product in the market. So, and that's the reason why we thought how does this particular section C is key, the perspective we want to bring in, even though we're going to do others as well. In February, we'll release all the dates for the remaining. How is section C is key to ensuring this requirement about protection of policyholders' funds, annual returns and accounts, investments? Why is it important to reinsurance, aviation insurance, annuity business, actuarial function, and also? So what's the relationship between this particular subject? And also, even though there is no requirement for the intermediaries, but why is it important for them to even have that mindset and to be able to look into it? And when we start talking about the intermediaries and other related business, we see why it is important to put this thing in the middle and use it as a tool. So far, till today, I'm aware that most insurance companies now begin to have chief risk officer, and we're aware that most is still from the place of compliance, the level of understanding, the level of how we use it to actually drive performance and compliance, and to develop new product, and to dare to do more and to take more risk positively, not insurance risk now, to do something more creative. There's a bit of those resistance and restrictions in that. So that's the angle we're coming from. Let me say this again. Some of you must have encountered us. Some of you might not. It might be the first time. Why is this thing important? We all have objectives. We all have goals, targets. As an individual, if you're here today, you have a performance KPI. Somebody has given you objective. Somebody has given you deadline. Your line manager is expecting you to be accountable. And one of the reasons why it is important is that if you are at work and you are being paid 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 8 to 5, somebody expects that when you do the work, your work will be measured. And in measurement, there will be a decision whether you succeed or you fail. It doesn't matter. And we can tell different reasons why we didn't succeed. We can, why we fail, or we can do a lot of excuses. But if we don't understand how to proactively think about what we're doing and the kind of conversation we can have with our line manager or the business before we get to the point of failure, it might make us look as if we are sometimes irresponsible. And so the reason why we do this is that it sits at the back of creating the culture of responsibility, knowing that one day we are going to be accountable for what we're doing, or in a particular week or in a particular month, in a particular quarter, we're going to be accountable. And that's also what this essence of this regulation is about. How do we become more responsible, knowing that we're going to give account? And when we give account, there will be a judgment call of either success or failure. When we have to give account, there will be the transparency of evidencing what we have done or how we have done it. Either you're a broker, intermediary, reinsurance underwriter, there is going to be a moment of accountability. And hence why it is important. We're going to give account of how we're protecting the client. We're going to give account of how we're investing. We're going to give account of all our reinsurance arrangements. Even the reinsurance business, we give account. Each of these aspects is kind of pointing to the sense of accountability. And if we're to give account, a person who is not responsible cannot give account, or a person who is not aware that they're going to give account sometimes don't take on responsibility. And so while we're doing this, so that early enough we begin to look at what are our responsibilities, what are the things we're going to do, how can we use a risk-based thinking to help us to begin to look at all these aspects, that if we fail to comply with any of these aspects, what does it mean for our business? What does it mean for our reputation? What does it mean for the shareholders' fund profitability? What does it mean for the industry, the reputation generally, and eventually could it affect our license? Could it cause that kind of thing? So that's the angle which we're looking at it. So if you're familiar with us before, it's that risk is not that something going wrong. We're not talking about, when we talk about risk, I know in the industry, risk is when you're placing a policy in somewhere that we use the word risk generally. In fact, I remember when we were Unilag, we used to refer to ourselves as risk managers. And I don't know why we never call ourselves risk financing managers, but the whole thing we're doing is financing potential of losses. In an industry, we don't think about insuring somebody where there's a gain. But in it also, the packages can create positivity gains for the businesses. So that's where the perspective we want to go. And looking at Appendix 2 of that particular regulation, it's interesting to see that there's a declaration that is important for everybody now. In that section 6, so the board must provide the commission with a risk management declaration stating that, to the best of its knowledge and its belief, having made appropriate inquiries, they have done the following. And I must say this declaration is quite, for us as in Nigeria, it's a beginning of a growing standard. I know what the declaration in some other regulated environment in Europe, in the UK, and America, and what is required, and the level of rigor and intensity that they go to audit those declarations. And if they fail in those declarations, the chairman or the guy leading the board might be also held accountable to say, okay, but you said you have done the following and there are no evidences and your business still failing in this area. So how come you're writing in your annual statement or annual report that these things are in place? So the company has a system in place. The board is satisfied. That board satisfaction is key. It's an assumption that your board engage in that process and system, and it links to the process of information and financial information of the company. The company has in place a risk strategy. Again, these are jargon. People talk about it, and sometimes people we write the risk strategy just because so that the regulator can see that we have something, and the era is coming to an end because the regulator also is getting more smarter. They want to see the evidences and what this thing is doing. And so these are some of the declarations we have to do. Now, I quickly want to look at some of the interesting sections and the perspective we're bringing in. So this is the first part here is what you find in the requirements of section 6. Is that for the purpose of this guideline, risk is the possibility that an event will occur and adversely affect the achievement of a company's objective, thereby decreasing value of a company. That's what the regulation says. And I think that's the minimum that the regulator is looking at, that, okay, how can we protect value from the place of value protection, from the place of ensuring that shareholders fund policyholders' expectation met. Now, at Conrad Clark, beyond protection and looking at decreasing value of the company, we're actually beginning to work on a model that will say, beyond protection, how about something that could occur that will be beneficial to the achievement of company's objective and thereby increasing the value? So not only do we think the minimum requirement is key as an organization, which we must do, and the regulator is keen about making sure that don't make a loss. But we are saying actually, if we're making it not make a loss is good, but actually you can also do something when you understand what this thing is, to begin to look at how protection of customer and policyholder value can create value, can increase your value, can increase the shareholders' expectation, profitability, and share price. And when you look at dividend today, in terms of the sector that is still not paying high dividend, I mean, Gus make a comment on all these things. I think insurance still paid the lowest form of dividend so far, even in the stock market. So how can we begin to ensure that this thing is not just we're protecting, which is good, but actually we're enhancing? And that thinking is the perspective we want to begin to share within the market and the regulator, that yes, we'll comply with the minimum standard of measure we protect, but also beyond that, can we release the entrepreneurs in the industry that can do more while protecting? So the protection will be the baseline itself. And then please don't worry about this. Most of us are familiar. It's very similar with the old one, what we have here, but it talks about things we're going to have. I'm just going to run through some of the section quickly. And this is what we're going to do with this and talk about, and we have Q&A. So a document is good, documented policies. Most of us have that, a business plan approved by board. Let me talk about the business plan. Most business plans sometimes can be static. And when a business is approved by the board, a business plan is a document of uncertainty. When you say you're going to do something by the end of December, this is what it should look like. You're not guaranteed what's going to happen. Election is coming. Nobody knows what's happening. There's naira scarcity. People, the uncertainties the next few weeks going to give us. The uncertainties the next few weeks going to give us, we don't know. So it's not just that I have a plan, but I have a plan that is consistently being monitored, tracked, and monitoring the uncertainties around the delivery of my targets and deadline. Chief Risk Officer is there, committee is there, risk register. I'll talk about risk register again. Risk register does not manage risk. So most of us, we have risk register. Some of those things are static. Some of those things are not dynamic. And some people just sometimes, some people look at it only once in a quarter, once in a year. And that tells me that it's not driving the business. So if it's driving the business, begin to look at how it fits into other aspects of the operation and bring it to life and constantly tracking the possibility of the changes in the environment, the uncertainties around any of that the customers desire, the customers taste, the level of demography, changing in demography, changing in the buying pattern, the products that the millennials are looking for, and the next generation, which the INEC said they have a lot of population, people are voting. Who are those people? What do they need? So there's a lot more dynamics that needs to come into this thing. Another thing I'm going to section 2.3, which is talk about well-defined appetite. This is another theoretical thing, sometimes confusing for a lot of people. Your appetite is something that's linked to your capacity, what you want to do. It's different from your risk register. It must be tracked, it must be managed. Your appetite can be your underwriting guidelines, your insurance limit, your claims arrangement, the timing to respond to claims response, your investigation. So it can go deep, looking at your combined ratio, testing it, check it, you have a limit and tolerance to check all those things, and your pricing arrangement. So all these things are critical. Eventually also your capital, which will hit the capital of the business that is using to run the business. The role of the board. Again, section 6.2, I'm suspecting that there's going to be more focus on the competencies of the board and how they're interrogating. Let me tell you what I've seen in practice. Usually there's an agenda, and usually the last agenda, after all the conversation have been heard, they now say, let's look at the risk. And what we usually have seen in those environments, that people are just looking at the red, amber, green, it has moved forward, it has moved down. There's going to be the demand to see how the risk information is used to make critical decision and the relationship between decision being made and the risk consideration. So either you want to launch a new product, either you're opening a new office, either you're looking at your insurance arrangement, or either you're looking at relationship with your brokers, either you're looking at your customer base, either you're looking at your reserving technique methods, and so different or your capital arrangement. How did you arrive at that decision? What are the considerations for uncertainties around those decisions? And are those things reflecting in the thing we call the risk report or risk register? So there's going to be a bit of more asking. And the reason why I think the regulator is asking more from the board is because sometimes reports goes to the board, there's no rigorous interrogation of all these things and the relationship between all these things. So they see, they like it, they improve it, but it's not there. So and so there's a bit of going to be more emphasis on that. There's senior management shall have responsibility for implementing the senior management team with the chief risk officer leading, and some of these things are well explained in the thing. I'm just going to be highlighting some key areas that I think we need to look at as well. So we've talked about that the elements for the framework, talk about the strategy, the process, the identification. Now, while again, I'm just suggesting, because we feel risk has a positive side. So in addition to assessing and controlling, there must be something you can take. And the reason why we're saying is that the industry will need to grow more. If we keep on having the risk as a thing that is bad, we will not try and be more creative and launch more products that will fit for the dynamics of the population and the demographic of human capital we have. So these things about identification, assessment, and control monitoring, it's a place where we need to begin to look at what does it mean in practice? How do we release this? How do we identify something? Sometimes we describe risk as crisis. When something has happened, and we are worried about it, they say it's a risk. That's no longer a risk in the professional definition of risk, actually, because it has happened and you are handling crisis. And so in the process of identification, you're not identifying something that's happened as a risk. If it has happened, there's a problem with claims and somebody is reporting to the regulator, there's a problem between broker and the underwriter or the reinsurance, and it's getting crisis, there's legal people coming into it, a claims issue, that is a crisis. My friend here, Gus, he's been trying to see how we get that together and to make sure that that crisis between, and that's he's been talking about claims advocacy every time. So that's one of the ways where areas on which everybody start asking questions. And if you're here, it doesn't matter your role in the organization, you are part of this process. It's not the job of the CRO or the risk department to do this thing at all. I can say that confidently. And wherever there's only one person doing it, or only one department doing it on behalf of others, there is a problem. This is supposed to help everybody to be able to make good decisions. The underwriters, the insurance people, the claims, the marketers, the finance, the admin, HR, everybody. So that's the essence of what our requirements are. Now, this is new. If you're familiar with the old risk guideline, we didn't have, it was not packed together. But so now we've introduced OSA. OSA is a global requirement, and it came out as a result of the banking crisis a few years ago, which led to Solvency II in most European countries, now also in the US. So OSA is a well thing that all the American underwriters are doing. It's a well thing that all the Canadian, Australian, European underwriters are also feeding into. Now, OSA is a very interesting thing because it brings together the fusion of the strategy, the plan, the business plan that we have, and the capital requirements that we're testing to make sure that we have enough if there is a shock, or in my accurate call is called the probability of real, when something terrible unexpected happens that is going to have a massive impact. That uncertain event that could hit the bottom line, and look at how the impact of that capital to make sure we can still trade. And then in the middle, how do we handle uncertainty between the possibility of something happening in the capital and the business, the strategy we're running? So it begins to look at planning, looking at scenario, doing stress testing, and in that is a new set of skills coming into the business. So it's not just looking at one dimension, we're combining the three together now. So the business uncertainties, using the effect and the business plan on all the assumptions, looking at the uncertainties around them and understanding the impact on the capital. So it said an insurer shall on annual basis submit the result of the OSA to the commission no more than 60 days after the year. And so this is a report. There are different templates. When this started in the UK, people have different kind of templates. If you are interested, you can talk to us about looking at what an OSA report looks like. If you're interested, just make that information in the feedback form with my colleagues to put there. So there are different templates. Some people have OSA light, OSA heavy, and some have multiple hundreds of pages of OSA reports. Others are able to look at it to be able to produce maybe 20 pages, not so enormous, but in kind of signposting. And what are the components of what should be in this OSA itself? These are some of the things that we might be able to begin to tease out for you guys later, so that at least you have some information and some tools to prepare to have that submission as well. And then you look at your financial condition report itself. So we can begin to look at on SharePoint is known as a standard to have an independent actuary to look at financial reports. So that's there. These are things that, now improving the quality of governance, the quality of assurance in the level of the capital that the underwriters have to put up itself. Now, even if you're a broker, in America, for example, the concept of OSA has gone beyond just the main underwriter. They're even using it between non-financial services. So they begin to say, if you're running a business and you're deploying shareholders' capital, we need to be mindful of protecting and projecting what will affect what these people are putting to run the business. Otherwise, something can happen and wipe the business away completely. So while it is critical for financial services because it's a regulated business, we don't want the policyholder to be stranded one day. And so that's why the focusing on the quality of the capital, the requirement of the capital you need to hold is critical because of that. But even if you're not regulated, it's a good business idea. It's a good business suggestion. And I'm going to say, especially even under the intermediaries, they start thinking about how they're going to be thinking about their own solvency. Yes, as well, even though nobody's holding them accountable for it seriously at the moment, you know. So the other sections are quite explanatory itself. And you can see that in the financial report also, it's talking about minimum, you have to have a risk management summary then. And this is not just say, oh, we've done risk management, we have a risk management strategy in place. We're saying, how is it driving all this? And we're looking at valuation of asset liability, pricing and adequacy, asset liability, capital management. How is it driving our insurance strategy? How is it influencing our business from previous year? How is it looking at our business overview? Has the concept of uncertainties and predicting the future, how does it help us to be able to get us to this financial position so that at least we are profitable? That's what the essence of that session will be as well. And some of the things I think we need to develop and improve the quality of our reporting and what we are putting in there as well. The guidelines also should not restrict the scope of action actual investigation as well. That's there, you know. So one thing we know is this, and I'm mindful of the time, but it's supposed to be for 1 hour, and I want to have some time to have a chat and maybe question from you guys with Gus. The OSA and the financial condition report, these are some of the things that's kind of two major big things that we feel is a shift between the old and the new. And they're major because globally, these two big things are emerging, and now so IFRS 17 has gone live. So again, you can see that there's a lot more coming to help to secure the accountability and the transparency of the industry. And so it calls for a need for each of us to study this. And the reason why we were starting with this again, as I said at the beginning, is that whatever we're going to do from here on, we will have a set of objectives. You know, our objectives from the place of how we treat the customer fairly. You know, are we mis-selling to them? Are we telling them, are we selling them product that's not true? Are we undercutting things? And these are the areas where a lot of scrutiny will come. Also, we're in the social media world now. If the customers, the policyholders are not happy, I can guarantee you, I'm seeing it and it's growing, your reputation will be in trouble in social media. And they can do selfie, they can do video, you go on WhatsApp. It takes only 1 minute for you to go viral. And if you have multiple complaints coming from your product sale, or you're unable to respond to your own responsibility, or you didn't make up to what you put in your product document, that itself begin to threaten not only your reputation, but also your license. So that the approach to understand how do we respond to a potential negative impact of the way we trade to our policyholder, our customers, and the investment, how do we look at the asset liability matching, especially with the rate of inflation going up, with the currency volatility, you know what's happening to Naira and dollar, you know what the interest rate is like, and with the forecast of economic growth. All these things together, they're quite critical for us. I'll pause for a minute. Now just call Gus to give us a few reflection and thoughts, and then we'll have I'll ask him a few questions, and then we'll open the floor for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Risk. Like I like to call you. Thank you, my brother, friend, Oga Risk. Thank you very much, my good friend, my good brother, and above all, Oga Risk. I want to just thank everybody who have come to participate in this program. Basically, like I said earlier, I mean, if the technocrats have said it all, I wonder what is expected of me. But I would just quickly want to put a little perspective to it all, because the insurance we are all doing today is just now more about the customer. How is the customer treated? How is the customer giving confidence? And this confidence are all driven by these new guidelines, these new regulations that are becoming to put in place. And of course, the board themselves too, given their fiduciary responsibility, they are becoming more aware. They are becoming more interested in what's going on in the company. In fact, it's like using a mirror now to see the company. And that's why they are getting more exposed. They are having more training. And so with the coming of this new guideline again, which is to facilitate, the reliable, to bring out a sound and reliable and sustainable growth for the insurance industry. So everything is just so much on it. And there's so much we need to continue to look at. I think like he has said, we are just looking at one part of it. And that one part of it today has to do with the risk management. There are going to be many more of it. So I just want to ask us that please, let's be more available. This is something they are doing voluntarily for the organization, given their interest in the organization and the growth they are expecting. Because whether we like it or not, risk management programs are beginning to open to business operations. They are beginning to open to corporate governance, the solvency of the company. So it's no more the time where we used to do financials of 32 pages. Some companies even will do 16 pages financials. Now I hear some companies do almost 200 pages of financials because they must give all these historical backgrounds to every number that is in their books. So there should be much more transparency. Gone are the days where people feel that board members just look at the numbers and they come in and they leave thereafter. No, there is so much that is dependent on you as the risk managers of your respective companies, as the ones who are preparing this financial. They want to ensure that what you are really giving them and what they are reading and what they are seeing is a true reflection of the books. So the regulators themselves, like Oga Risk have said, is very becoming, they are becoming more advanced to what numbers we are all looking at, because I think I will just put it this way: it's becoming a global village. Whatever is happening in Nigeria now is being reflected all over the world, and whatever is happening in other geographical areas, of course, is being reflected in Nigeria. So whatever we're doing, we are no more doing it just to satisfy the Nigerian market alone, but to satisfy the world. So I would just again say that let's continue to make ourselves available and continue to continue to tap from the knowledge of Oga Risk and Conrad Clark as an institution who have taken time to put together this program this morning. I think this is just a little I would just want to say, because you have said it all. I don't have any other thing to add, but to say that please let's consciously know that this thing is not going to be business as usual again. It's going to be a different perspective of going forward with the insurance industry. Thank you very much. I think that's just a little I will say for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me quickly ask you one question. So as a former CEO,
yes,
NAICOM has released this thing. What would be the first three things that perhaps will have come to your mind for a lot of colleagues listening? You're not actively in that space, but I think they can learn from how will be your perspective as a CEO to this.
I think the first thing that will come to my mind is that, look, it's not, like I said earlier, it's no more going to be business as usual. There's need for more transparency. There will be need for more accountability. And above all, it's like a short path to growth. Because when the moment people, because I tell people every day, It is the customer. You are in business because of the customer. And if the customer has confidence in what you are doing, has confidence in the numbers that you are chalking out every year, it gives them a whole lot of comfort instead of having a very myopic, accounting book that that reflects into the market. So, but above all, what I would just like what you are doing now is something I would have thought maybe not limited to the risk managers, but of course, maybe the CEOs themselves, they should be aware. I always want to rely on my risk manager, but at the same time, I want to know as much as he knows. Not that he'll be feeding me with his own knowledge. I want to know as much as he knows, that at every point in time, we'll always be at the same level. That's my thoughts.
Thank you very much. I remember for that insight, also you and I discussed once that, what do you think as a CEO, though your perspective of risk as per the other part of business, vis-a-vis just the risk department doing their thing and send to you, from place of using it to drive the whole business? I think you have the thought which you share with me. I just wanted to share with everybody so they can begin to see from a CEO perspective what your thoughts have been and your expectation as well.
I think we have shared so many thoughts, but one of the key things is that, it gives me that comfort, because when the risk analysis or the risk audit of my company is done, the first thing is the comfort. How much comfort does it give me? How much of what we are doing is a reflection of what we should be doing? So these are the things. I can't remember some of them in details, but I just know that is what I feel should really be what we are starting with. How much comfort is it giving me? How many things am I seeing? How many things am I really looking at? First of all.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll just open. We have a few more minutes. Anyone question in the chat room that people want to ask questions, please. Just to say, how many, I don't know if I can get show of hands, I just see how many of us has actually started working on what the OSA will look like, for our organization. And how,
You are muted. Oga Risk, you are muted.
oh, sorry. Is it how many of us have actually started working on what OSA will look like? Since this thing came out last year. Anyone?
Maybe they can indicate by raising up their hand so they can be identified.
Somebody said I should explain more about the positive side of risk. Risk management is the supervision based in prices. Okay. Yeah, so the positive side of risk, for example, is the fact that there are new ways of, so you have the objective to increase, you have your new ways of increasing your market share. You want to get more, maybe you want to increase your life insurance sale. Yeah. And in looking at your life insurance sale, look at the demography of Nigeria and look at the next demographic data of the kind of the young professional coming, especially the artisan one, those who are not employed in a formal setting. So your product development bank can come together to think about what kind of product, both maybe a bit of investment, maybe a bit of life that can link into a mortgage, that can help this next generation to buy life product, as an example, but not just life, that has something else that's attractive for them, that will give them comfort for protection and be able to begin to navigate their life. So that's the positive. It's uncertain that new product is going to make a lot of money. We're not sure. But the fact that you can identify a demographic group of people and you can research and be able to design a product to begin to sell to those people could be an opportunity. Opportunity is also different methods to sell your product. Yes, the intermediaries are there, but you find that the aggregators are coming in, which is why you see the third part, and there are other online, there people who have now online technology, deploying technology to be able to sell. I know the underwriters, we have about 10 underwriters in Nigeria now that they have, you can update your policy from an app. That's beginning to happen. You can update your policy. So those are opportunities. Social media, can you sell an app? Can customer service be integrated with WhatsApp, with security, where people, when there is a claim or there's an accident, they can take the picture, put their claim, their policy number, send it to a center where immediately somebody is responding. That's the level of technology, the level of competition, the level of opportunity I'm hoping that the next generation of underwriters will start working on to improve the competition, to improve the quality of service to the policyholder. So those are some of the examples that I can share with you. But again, and if you want to know more, please, the feedback from there, we can send you more information as well. So as I said at the beginning, I don't think there are more questions again. We're going to go into more specific area. We're going to invite guests, as we invite guests to look at the reinsurance relationship. We're going to look at guests in terms of the account returns, policyholders requirement, treating customers very well. We'll block some of them together. We're going to look at what is required for the intermediaries and the implications of failing in all these areas. Yeah. Thank you very much.
There's a hand up.
Okay, who is that?
I have a question. I just want to know the areas all these can benefit a marketer, or a marketer can come into this.
Fantastic. This is a very good question. So the first one, which I think the first part,
that's
which I think the
marketer.
Yes. I think the first part the first part I believe the marketers should be looking at. If I'm going to go back to my screen, can you see my screen? Now, Gus mentioned about how do we treat customer plan. This protection of policyholders funds, or something about policyholders relationship when we're selling. The marketers, when they're selling, sometimes people over exaggerate and they don't explain, or they're not working to look at the implication of what is written in the policy document and what we're saying to the potential customer. So from the place of understanding KYC, know your customer, selling to the customer the accurate thing, and make sure that they understand what is required, working with their brokers. That will be one area where I think the marketers should know. But the rest also, they should be able to have a fair idea of the market they're running in. Because as a marketer, you can be selling, but you need just have an idea of the annuity business, what's the role of the investment, you don't have to have the technical knowledge of it, you don't have to be, but a bit of just understanding of all these things will help them also to be able to have confidence when they're being challenged by the customers as well, to give them that confidence to be able to defend the market, to be able to defend the industry, to defend the company that they're working with. So a bit of awareness of this area will help marketers as well. That's my view. Is that okay, Chinyere? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
There's
fantastic.
a question from Yvonne Palm, 10:51 a.m. I'm not sure we can do justice to it. Or can you just pick it?
The FCA and also our requirement seems very similar. Where is the commissioner expecting different changes? I wish there's somebody from the commission to be able to talk about this. But where there are layovers, there will be differences. That's where we're hoping they will join us, but therefore unavoidably not able to join us. I can give you my own personal perspective on this, move on, because I would have preferred somebody from regulation to talk about it first and then add my own perspective. But I'll send a view to you on that. Yes, but I hear that question, and when we get their perspective, we can share with everyone that participated as well. Thank you. Okay,
one last question from Sheyi Onosoya. Just before Yvonne's zone.
Independent of risk-based valuation is imperative to success. To what extent has the industry implemented this, and what are the challenges? So I think we're growing. The risk-based supervision is going to increase. So I think by the time you start submitting your OSA, there'll be clarity in terms of different capital calculations or the leverage that you all have. The idea of risk-based supervision is to see, okay, those who can secure, who can provide the regulator with assurance that they are handling, or they have the process to handle uncertainties well, more effectively, better. It's like dividing the market into red, amber, green. Yes, green being those who have good evidences of effective management of risk and uncertainties in all aspects of the operation, and they can see how it's protecting their capital. Very strong. Maybe the next group category will be medium, and the last category those who are really weak. I am aware that some people are still weak. The good thing we enjoy in Nigeria is that our claims environment, and GOS can add to this, we have a generous claims environment. We're not in a catastrophic weather pattern. We're not in a difficult environment where the natural disasters and those kind of claims are not coming. I mean, the worst we have is fire and flood and all those kind of things. If we had hurricanes and all those kind of things, I guess we begin to see the reality of those who are not effectively managing or have a risk system in place to all the things they're doing. So I suspect that in the next few months, next few years, this thing will come in more and more to begin to look at the effectiveness, and the regulator is getting stronger. They're going to be checking evidences. The days where we say we have something we can't evidence is coming to an end. Now we need to be able to evidence that actually we are doing something, and we can show the value is creating or the result our effort is creating. It's 11 o'clock. I wouldn't want to take you more than that. We're going to announce, for those who attend here, we're going to announce the dates for the next set of aspects we're going to look at with our guest, and then we'll bring more perspective. But please fill the feedback form, ask us questions, info@conradclark.com. Come on our social media platform, email me, joachim@conradclark.com, j@conradclark.com, and we can take it offline. But we don't want to take you longer than that. Thank you everyone for coming. Hi, over to you.
Thank you all for being a part of this program. We hope that we've been able to at least set some interest in your heart towards implementing the tenets of this guideline. And we are more than happy to work with you as an organization to explore how you can implement any part that you feel you need external support. We're going to be sharing some information with you after this more about our company. And if you're interested in talking to us, please do get in touch. We already have the feedback questionnaire. Do fill it back, do finish and send it back. We've asked you what areas do you want to know more about. So we hope that when we get that, we'll collate something together and we'll share again with you. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much, Joachim, and thank you very much, God, for your discussion here. And thank you for those who asked the questions. We're not able to answer all the questions because of the time, but we hope we'll be able to answer some. If we haven't answered you, if you really want to know a bit more, do put your question in the feedback questionnaire. We'll get back to you again on those. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day. the rest of the day. Thank you. See you next month. Thank you. Just stay behind and
Thank you
talk to
very
each
much.
other and network if you want to with each other online. The line will be open for a few more minutes in case people want to share any information with their colleagues in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can have a copy of this slide.